Hey, it's Gerald from Lakers Fast Break. Anchor is the easiest way to make your next podcast. It's absolutely free, and their creation tools will allow you to record and edit your show right from your phone or your home computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on great podcast outlets like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started on your next podcast. All right, and we're back once again with the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports, Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you get a chance, we have a great lineup of shows that have been on the Lakers Fast Break podcast channel. Rafael Barlowe from the NBA Draft Junkies has come on with some great stuff in the past couple weeks. Laker Tom from Lakerholics.net has come on with some good stuff as well. Michael Weisenberg from Perspective Insight and The Stepien, he's come on with some great stuff. So you got to go ahead and check out all the topics that we talk about, from the social issues and everything going on with that, and systemic racism, to what is the NBA going to do with it as far as how they set up their season and the playoffs and all that, plus mock drafts galore, because I did a mock draft. And you can check out that episode too right here at the Lakers Fast Break. But speaking of NBA Draft Junkies, if you haven't checked it out already, you are missing quite a bit, because, you know, if you're an NBA fan out there, you got to educate yourself, because now's the time to check up on all these different prospects that are out there. And one of the best places to go on the interwebs, as they used to say in the old days. Well, I'm actually old, so it would have been during my day. But anyways, in the interweb is NBA Draft Junkies, because you've got so many great things there, not only with his site, NBADraftJunkies.com, also as well, you've got his YouTube page, which has dozens and dozens and dozens of videos that are already made on the current prospects that are out there, and also some mock drafts, which we'll touch on here in a bit. It is the best place to go, and now he's added a podcast that you can check out on all the major podcast apps as well. And what does he call it? Of course, it's NBA Draft Junkies, and here's the man himself, the man behind NBA Draft Junkies. It's Rafael Barlowe. And Rafael, always great to have you on, my friend. I hope all is well.
All is good. I enjoy coming on every time, and that's probably why I've been on about 15 times in the last few weeks. So anytime you want me on as a guest, I really enjoy it, and all you have to do is give me the word, and I'm here.
I appreciate it, my friend. I couldn't believe it the other day when I looked at the number of Lakers Fast Break podcasts I've made, and now I'm in the 80s. And this is something I just started up on a whim outside of the pop culture stuff, and now I'm up into the 80s on that, and it was just like blowing me away. And then I go to my Podbean channel, and I'm at 500 there overall within the past 3-4 years. So it's just like, my gosh, what have I done with my life as far as podcasting is concerned? So it's just so many out there that I've done. In fact, going back to 2009, you can add another 150 to it, 200 something. I don't know. The number gets lost in the equation, but still, I mean, if really shows that if you can go ahead and do something out there, podcasting is a way to go. So many people are getting into it now. There's some really good ones like yours that are out there that people need to take a listen to, and I hope they do, because you put some really darn good stuff out there, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And to make 500 podcasts that's quite a bit. It takes some time to get there, but I think the most important thing out of all that is you're doing something that you love. And it's the same for me. Like coming on here and talking basketball, or all the hours I spend watching videos, cutting up videos, editing my site. It's something that I love to do. And I feel like your life it has something to it. It has a lot more value to it when you're doing something that you really enjoy as opposed to spending 40 hours a week doing something that you hate. And I think when you're doing something that you love and you put in the work and the time and the effort that you put into, success will come. And once success comes, the big checks will come. So when you get the multi-million-dollar deal for exclusive content from one of these, Spotify or whoever, I'm just glad to say that I had a very, very small role in that.
Oh, no. You had a very big role in that, my friend. And if that's the case, if Spotify comes running, we're going to see how we can work together on that. So, we can get a nice chunk of change together on that. I'm going to tell you right now because, your stuff is just as good as mine, even better. And people need to take a listen to it and watch it on NBA Draft Junkies because you put so much time and quality effort into it as well. And like you said, when you really enjoy doing something, I mean, that's what counts. And, your stuff, like there are people, I mean, you've got 11,000 plus subscribers already to your channel. And that's a credit to you that you've got so many. And I'm just, happy for your success and wanting you to go ahead and do even more and do even better because people need to check out your stuff because it's really good. It's not just again, we mocked it, but it's just not some 14-year-old that's out there that unfortunately has a lot more subscribers than me that's out there that's so successful. This is some really quality stuff that people really need to take a listen or a watch to.
Yeah, I appreciate every time that you plug me in or you promote my content to your followers. So I've seen some of the results, and I just can't thank you enough.
Oh, thank you. I know a lot of people out there are probably vomiting right now. We've been glad-handing each other and patting each other on the back. Can we get on with the show, Gerald? All right, yes, we're going to get on with the show. It's going to start like this. We're going to talk about the Western Conference because I don't know if people remember on a show we did a couple weeks back, I think about 3 weeks back, we did one on the Eastern Conference and who we liked out of there and out of that scenario coming into a playoff format. Right now knowing what we know about how the league is going to be set up for the rest of the NBA season when it comes back in July 31st, I want to hear your thoughts on a Western Conference preview and, I mean, some of the major factors in there. You can even include the teams that are battling for that 8th place spot, like a Portland, like a Sacramento. I don't know about a San Antonio because LaMarcus Aldridge just reported that LaMarcus Aldridge went into surgery or had a shoulder surgery done in March, which absolutely no one knew, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So I don't know how much of a factor San Antonio is, but teams like New Orleans, Sacramento, Portland, if they get on a little bit of hot streak, they can make a little bit of noise.
Yeah, and I think one of the teams that was impacted the most was Sacramento. They had won 7 out of their last 10 before the season was canceled. And I know that they have to have, just be devastated because they had so much momentum coming in. And now they're probably hoping that they can maintain the momentum because I feel like they were a threat to, be in the playoff picture because it's a 3-way tie as far as percentage. I mean, I'm sorry, as far as games behind. Yeah. And so they're like the forgotten team. Everybody's talking about Portland, and then the fans want to see Zion, but Sacramento is the team that everybody just seems to have forgotten about how well they were playing before the season was shut down.
And it's something that people need to keep in perspective because they had injuries. Mm-hmm. They got off to a very poor start. A lot of people were after them. And then yet, like you said, in the second half of the season, they started to put things together and become much more competitive. And there is a very good chance that they're now, provided they're as healthy as any team out there, they can go ahead and make some noise for that 8th spot and get on that little bit of winning streak. People, like you said, are talking Portland, they're talking New Orleans, but nobody's talking about Sacramento at this point in time.
Yeah, Portland was 4-6 in their last 10 games, and the Pelicans, everybody talks about how well they were playing and how hot they were, but they were 5-5 in their last 10. And I think the only team in the West that was playing better than Sacramento were the two teams in LA, and like the last maybe 10 to 15 games of the season.
And let's get into that because I think anybody who is going to challenge for that 8 spot, or even if it ends up still being Memphis, is going to have a tough time getting anywhere past the Lakers, or even on the outside chance that the Clippers get that spot. The Clippers or the Lakers, I don't think they're going to be able to match up. Even a Portland team at full strength is going to match up with either of those two teams very well. So at this point in time, you got to think about the other teams in the Western Conference, and one of those teams that I think needs to be discounted, even though I was kind of high on them until I heard about the news, that was Utah. I mean, ever since the coronavirus happened and the fallout between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, it's not gotten much better. It's actually gotten a lot worse.
Yeah, with Bogdanovich being out, and I know a lot of people were saying, like, why would he get surgery? But
it seemed like weird because that's been an injury he's played with for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they said he first injured in either late December or early January. And, I mean, I'm guessing that he probably thought the season was done. And, if LaMarcus had his surgery in March, that he probably may have felt the same way, that there's no way that they're going to come back and finish the season. And so I think even if he chose to wait for the quote-unquote off-season, then he would have missed the beginning of next season because there's really not going to be an off-season, much of an off-season if the schedule plays out the way that that we've heard is or what we've read in the last few days. Even though they said that it likely will change, but if it doesn't, then there's not going to be much of an off-season, even if you lose in the first round of the playoffs.
And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I also asked this of Michael Weisenberg of Perspective Insight, and that is that season changeover. Right now the league has tentatively, and that's a very big T in front of it, as a December 1st starting date for next season. I had put it over to closer to Christmas because I thought Christmas was, to me, a great starting point, but then again, I think it was you that responded back as the Olympics and things of that nature that they would have to time out. At this point, it's got to be somewhere in that window between the 1st and the 25th that's got to fall under. But I don't think it's going to be closer to the 1st. I still think it's going to be close to the 25th, even though, again, you have the Olympics that the NBA as a whole wants to keep in mind that they want still these players to be a part of, if at all possible.
Yeah, I saw a tweet today where the Hawks general manager said that in a call with the league, they said that they may shorten next season. And I guess they're choosing to shorten it than have a bunch of 4 games in 5 nights or a bunch of back-to-backs. And they're just regular. It seems like they'd rather have a shortened season next year and then get back on their normal regular schedule the year after that because – they definitely want the guys to be able to play in the Olympics.
It is important, I guess, like I said, for the world audience and the NBA to basically advertise its players on a worldwide format. So I can understand the importance because when it all comes down to it, my friend, what did we say last time? It's always about money.
Yeah, it's all about the Benjamins, according to Puff Daddy.
Yes, that's very true. I don't think much more prophetic words have ever been uttered by an individual other than that because he was exactly, pardon the pun, on the money with that one. We're signaling the ref for a quick timeout, but we'll be back with more of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. Check out what's been going on with the Pop Culture Cosmos Show and the PCC Multiverse.
The better that these Marvel films do, the higher the standards are going to be for not just other films in general, but other Marvel films also.
I think it's really hard to end a show with this many fans in a satisfying way.
That's the Pop Culture Cosmos Show.
And the PCC Multiverse.
Playing worldwide on radio 7 days a week and wherever you get your podcasts. I think they're going to have at least a little bit better time cooperating with each other than what we're seeing out of Major League Baseball at the present time, because that's just all over the place right now when you're seeing the way that the owners and the players are acting towards each other. So I think at least whatever it's going to come down to is something that's going to be agreeable to the players and agreeable enough to the team owners as far as what they ultimately come out with for a season next year.
Yeah, it's interesting that baseball hasn't played a single game, so there hasn't been any money generated. So I don't even know if guys are getting paid. I haven't spent much time doing research on it.
No,
so
they're still throwing around proposals. Went from into the 110s as far as first proposal down to the 70s was the second proposal. Now it's back up into the 80s. The baseball players want in the 80s now, so we'll see what it comes down to as far as a final resolution on the season. But the longer they hold out, the less relevant baseball becomes. And that's a bad thing for a sport that I don't want to say is dying, but it's slowly losing its momentum with younger fans.
Yeah, I agree. When I was young, growing up, I followed baseball just as much as I followed basketball. I collected baseball cards, and I knew all the prospects. I used to get the Beckett baseball card magazine once a month, and just slowly my interest in baseball just kind of disappeared. And I remember the last time I was really, really interested in following baseball was '98, and that was the year with McGuire and Sosa. But other than that, I haven't really paid too much attention to it.
And there's an ESPN 30 for 30 coming out on Sunday in regards to the 1998 season between Sosa versus McGuire and the love fest that was there and all the things that emanated from that, so to speak. So I won't go into detail on that. I mean, if you didn't live through that time, it was actually a fun thing to watch. I enjoyed it. I know a lot of other people did as well. But the ramifications on how they did it, what they did, and all that, the after effects and what they're thought of at this point in time by the baseball hierarchy is a different story. And I'm sure that they're going to cover it there again on the 30 for 30 on Sunday on ESPN. But let's get back to the Western Conference, pulling it back into the Western Conference. I know there's a lot of things to talk about. I mean, Utah, like we said, is definitely at a disadvantage, losing Bogdanovich, and that's something that really needs to be focused and addressed on because he was their glue guy. He was doing a lot right to make that team go and to make that team tick. I mean, they are up and down all season, but when their ups were up, a lot of it was due because of him.
Yeah, and I mean, he was their big free agent signing, and they, paid him all that money for the playoffs, and it's just unfortunate that he won't be able to participate with the team in the playoffs. And so they still have, they'll lose some outside shooting, and I guess their hope now is that Mike Conley can regain his shooting form because he's really had a down year. He hasn't played as well as that they expected him to. So hopefully he can pick up some of the slack for Utah with Bogdanovich being out.
I hope so. Because, a lot of people were really high up on Mike Conley being that key to what could potentially have become in fact, I had them, I think, at number 1 or number 2 on my seeding as far as the Western Conference is concerned. At the beginning of the year, I thought they were really going to go places as far as being a team to contend for that Western Conference championship, and unfortunately hasn't materialized as well as people have thought. They look like they're the clear second tier, even with Bogdanovich in there, from what they've been playing like. But again, there's more questions abound with what's going on with Gobert and Mitchell, and that future looking more like Shaq and Kobe, and not in a good way.
I think they'll be able to figure it out because, in the beginning, it sounded as if like Gobert gave it to Donovan Mitchell, but we really don't know who had it first. No. And by Gobert's name being the first name that was mentioned, it seems like he's the one that carried it and infected everybody. But I think over time, there's over 100,000 people, unfortunately, who have passed away, and we understand that how anyone can get it by being in close proximity to someone who has it and not showing symptoms. I think with knowledge, I just don't understand if Mitchell can really hold a grudge against Rudy, especially without knowing who had it first. And so, yeah, I mean, Rudy was immature and with the whole thing about touching the mics, but I think over time, and it's been like, what, 2-3 months, and I'm hoping that by people wanting to just get back on the court and play basketball, that they'll be able to just put those differences to the side.
I hope so. I hope so, because it would be great to see them patch things up. But if not, we could see a blow up after the season, like we saw with Shaq and Kobe.
And the New York Knicks would they would love that, just because I think Donovan has ties with CAA, and I think Leon Rose, and if it wasn't Leon, then it was somebody under him was his agent. He's from the area, and that would probably be their ideal situation.
Well, they're not giving up Mitchell. Mitchell wouldn't be the one to go. I could tell you right now, Mitchell would not be the one to go. It's going to be Gobert.
Yeah, and I think Rudy's in line for he was in line for like a $200 million contract.
The Supermax, yeah.
Yeah, and man, it will be tough, but I wonder if Mitchell would try to force his way, and because he had, if he's, I've actually had a chance to meet him, but if his agency is like, look, if you can come to New York and be the star in Madison Avenue, and forces his way out and says he won't sign the extension, then I can see him going to New York.
I love how the Knicks are getting into this narrative. That's like 2 episodes in a row. The Knicks are getting into this narrative, right? Even when they're not relevant, they are relevant.
Yeah, for good and bad reasons. I mean, it's easy to, they're like the punching bag that you can always throw shots at New York.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you before we get into the LA Love Fest that's there are 2 teams in the Western Conference. Well, actually, you can say 3 with Dallas. But one of the teams I wanted to really focus on and hear your thoughts on is Houston. And the reason why is because I'm hearing more and more input from the experts that are out there that are really starting to get some love towards Houston and their small ball concept after they traded away Clint Capella and just said, you know what, our big guys are P.J. Tucker and Robert Covington, and we're going to run with that. And so I want to hear your thoughts on how far you think Houston can go, because some people are really starting to go ahead and read between the tea leaves that Houston could go a long way in the NBA playoffs.
And, honestly, I really enjoyed watching Houston play the last few games after the trade deadline. They were fun to watch because they were like baiting teams, and teams would try to pound the ball into the post, and then they just had all these small guards. They were like bees. Just as soon as the ball touched the post, they collapsed, they got out, they ran, they shot a lot of threes. They were fun to watch. And I wonder how the NBA would feel if Houston did go far. Because if Houston goes far, by it being a copycat league, that may change the league for the next 2 to 3 years, because teams are going to go even smaller. Like, we've already seen the small ball era, but it would be like really, really small ball if Houston has some success. And if they don't get past the second round, then unfortunately I think there's going to be some big changes, maybe in the
starting with Daryl Morey.
Yeah, so it's boom or bust in the small ball lineup. But I would like to see them succeed. I know the game against the Lakers showed how scary they can be with their small ball lineup.
And I remember that they had just gotten Covington, and they played at a level I think that the Lakers weren't expecting, and really caught them off guard. I don't think they'll be able to do that in a 7-game series against them, personally. I think now once you prepare for Houston, and that's the thing, once you're going to be there in a confined area, and you're going to have lots of time on your hands to do nothing but scout that other team. And with that kind of preparation, I think you can go ahead and defeat a team like Houston. But you're right, if they do go ahead and go a long way and finally get to that magical realm that they've just so narrowly have not been able to get, as we've seen their frustrations over the past few years, I think they can go a long way. And you're right, people will be trying to copycat ad nauseum. But if it does go in reverse, again, I think that Daryl Morey is probably the first person out the door after all the stuff that he's done in the past few months, or said personally, and then, of course, the changes into that direction, he'll be held the most accountable.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like the Hong Kong incident was so long ago. Even though it was maybe, 7-8 months ago, it seems like it was 2 years ago. And the league ended up losing a significant amount of money regardless. So the money that they lost from the fallout with China is probably very small compared to, the whole pandemic thing, which some people say is still related to China. But I would like to see the Lakers and the Rockets in a playoff series, because it would be very interesting to see the Lakers rotation, because if I'm not mistaken, Dwight didn't play much that game. No. And the Lakers they are the biggest team in the league, in my opinion, and they can just wear you down with bigs. But if they play the Rockets, then either they're going to dominate by playing the way that they normally play, or they have to, if they end up adjusting to Houston, then who is going to be the big that they choose to roll with? Because I can't imagine Dwight and JaVale playing significant minutes if they're playing Houston and they have to make an adjustment. So which one do you roll with?
Well, you would see a heavy dose of Anthony Davis at 5, which I know he doesn't love, but it wouldn't be so bad for him because he's not playing against a big on the other side. Right.
And I always felt like no matter what happens, Anthony Davis was going to be the 5-man in the playoffs and be the 5 in all the closing lineups, which could hurt LA as far as re-signing Dwight, or, if it's a playoff series and Anthony's playing a lot of minutes at the 5, Dwight and JaVale could be under 15 minutes a game, both of them. Yeah. So I know that would, it's something that could happen. It's professional basketball. You have to be a professional about it. But imagine playing major minutes all season for the number 1 seed in the West, and then once the playoff starts, you're out the rotation, and it could easily happen if they play the Rockets.
I hear you on that, and I think that's something that they need to think about. But with Dwight Howard, I still think he's going to be a hard get for them to retain in the offseason anyways, because he's had a resurgence, so to speak, and I think a lot of teams are going to look for that type of center, at least for 20, 25 minutes a game, that they can get out of Dwight Howard. And if they don't pick up James Wiseman in the draft, I could see Golden State trying for him, and as a center for at least a start, as a pick and roll center for them, at this point in time. I think that's something that they would look for. Anybody who's looking for a 20, 25-minute guy, I think that would probably be the best fit for him going forward. It's because I don't think you're going to get him as your backup center once again next year for the Lakers. I think you're pushing your luck there.
And I could see Dwight going either way, because he's made a boatload of money, and it's a way for him to kind of change his reputation. I mean, he went from one of the most loved players in the NBA to all of a sudden he was a journeyman for a few years. So I could also see him wanting to stay in LA just for some stability and having his name being attached to being a winner again.
There you go.
But then again, money talks. It's all about the Benjamins, as we said earlier.
All about the Benjamins. And, the team Lakers could, if he doesn't get picked up in this free agent spree that could happen at the end of this month, DeMarcus Cousins could, again, be an option for the Lakers. I've heard that rumor as well. So we'll see how that matches up down the road. But when it comes to other teams in the Western Conference, how viable a chance do you give a team like Dallas, which, has the Luka Porzingis combo that I like for years down the line? I'm just not sure I like it so much as well in this type of format in this playoff run.
Well, I think the first part is getting those guys back to the States. I think they're both in Europe right now, and if the teams are having small workouts, those guys aren't a part of the workouts. And then I just think because they're so young and they don't have any playoff experience, I think this year will definitely be like a learning experience for them. Right now they're 7th, and if the season ended today and the playoffs started tomorrow, they face the Clippers, and that's one of the teams they've really struggled with this year. I know Luka's probably played his worst basketball games this season against the Clippers, which is understandable because they can throw Kawhi at him, they can throw Paul George at him, they can put Pat Beverly on him and kind of frustrate him. And then Porzingis, he kind of struggled a little bit earlier in the season, but I felt like he was starting to find his niche when Luka was out. He started playing well. I think Porzingis at the 5 is the Mavs' best lineup, and I feel like they can give teams some issues there. But I think Denver would be a better matchup for them. I think Clippers would give them a lot of troubles. And then if they go to 6, they could end up with like a Utah, Oklahoma City, or maybe a Houston. Then I think they have a shot there. But I feel like they need to really move up and play well in this bubble league and get out the 7th spot.
I like that. That's what they call it now, the bubble league.
The bubble league.
The bubble league. The reason why I'm laughing so much is because there's certain individuals that don't want to say the word bubble because of they're so, in our society, if you say one thing now, there's so many bad connotations by it. So, you can't say the word bubble, but in essence, it is a bubble. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should mark it as the bubble league champions.
The National Bubble League. The National Bubble Association. There you go. I was talking to Laker Tom, and just before we head to the other teams in the equation in the Western Conference, I was talking to Laker Tom from LakerHolics.net about this. I know that someone is going out there is going to try and put an asterisk on whoever ends up ultimately being the NBA champion. I don't think they should because the circumstances in this season are much more difficult than any other season. And I pointed out to the Lakers in particular because, yes, I do host the Lakers Fast Break podcast, but the team itself has been through so many ups and downs on a personal and team level that I think if they win, or for that matter, any other team wins in the World Championship, I really think not only do you not give an asterisk, you might actually give them kudos for winning in a situation that has never been presented before.
Yeah, I think it's tougher. I'm not a big fan of asterisks. I mean, like, I hear people say, oh, the San Antonio Spurs is an asterisk for their 99 championship. But my question is, well, what advantages did they have that the other teams didn't? And even in this situation, I feel like the playing field is, as of right now, it's even. Everybody has had the same issues. Everybody's been off for months, and everybody's adjusting to their surroundings. There's no home court advantage. So if anything, like you said, I think it may be harder to win this season. I did read just right before I came on that if the league is not going to penalize any players if they decide not to play in the bubble league. So that was kind of fresh off the wire from Woj. Now, that could lead to some people saying there's an asterisk because, for instance, if someone like LeBron says, you know what, I don't want to be away from my kids, I don't feel safe, yada, 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 then it changes everything. And I don't know if we're going to have a superstar say that because, man, I imagine a backlash would be pretty tough and letting your teammates down. Even if they don't feel safe in the environment, I just think that the pressure would make them still go forward with it. But other than that happening, I don't see how any team would have an advantage over another team.
I agree with you. I think outside of that, if there's some major players holding out, that would be one way you could say it. But for the most part, if all the major components and the major players are there that make up the 22 teams that are going there, then I don't see why you would not give it an asterisk or not think of it any less than any other team because, again, it comes down to the fact you're in a bubble. You don't have a home court advantage anymore. Your home crowd is gone. I don't want to hear what Laker Tom is, hearing on the internet or all these people on the internet. Hey, let's ship the parquet floor from Boston over there. That's just garbage. That is absolute garbage. I hear that for Staples Center or whatever it is. Get that out of here. Give that money to the people who lost their jobs that go ahead and take care of the Lakers or the Boston Celtics or whoever. on any given night in the arenas. I mean, that's what you should do instead if you even thought of that. But this idea that you can give any type of break, when in all reality you can't because you don't have that home court advantage, that's gone. You're now on a neutral court in a neutral area in a confined bubble, so to speak. And to me, that's going to be one of the hardest scenarios any NBA team has ever faced.
Yeah, you can arguably say this could be the toughest championship because there's not anything in history that we can go back and say this is similar. Nobody's had to face this. And then I also feel like for the most part, at least that we know of, everybody should come in pretty healthy. There shouldn't be any teams that are bringing players in with nagging injuries. Everybody should be fine. I mean, I guess you can replace the nagging injuries with if players are in shape or not. But that's something that we won't know until, we still have a few, I guess almost 2 months before we find out who's in shape and who's not. But I feel like these are high-class athletes. They can get in shape in a month.
I agree with you on that. And obviously, for your training several high-quality athletes over the years, you understand that better than anybody, how fast they can get in shape. And the replacement players, the two-way players, and how they're going to structure that as far as adding on players who either get sick from coronavirus or who get injured and cannot continue, or who placing people who might not even show up because of what they fear contracting in this bubble is still yet to be determined 100% how they're going to be able to structure that. So that'll be very interesting. But heading back into our Western Conference one more time, Denver is someone that I thought with its advantages in the home court, speaking of home court and their altitude, and the fact that they have a very deep team, I thought they were really going to go high as far as an overall regular season record is concerned. And they're still not bad in the number 3 position right now. But as I look at them, I don't look at them as high as I once did as far as competing for an NBA championship. Am I wrong in that assertion, or is it something that I need to reconsider, or are you of a similar vein as far as Denver at this point in time?
I don't know what to think about Denver. I guess because, I think Jokic is highly respected, but I don't know if he's feared like a LeBron or Kawhi or even a James Harden. So I imagine that if there's a team that's in the lower seed, if they say there's a team that is ranked that would have home court advantage in a normal situation, I think Denver would be the team that they would pick, that they feel like they could have a better shot at a first-round upset. But I heard this morning, I forgot which podcast it was I was listening to, that Jokic is in the best shape of his life.
Yeah, he didn't go overseas. He stayed here in the States. Yeah.
And so if that's the case, then it makes them stronger because, if there's a knock on him, they say that he's not in the best shape. But I feel like that's usually something that people say at the beginning of the season. He seems fine as the end of the season. But, yeah, I think Denver will be the team that if you're Dallas or Portland or Oklahoma City or Houston, I think that's the team that you may want to face in the first round.
Couple last points to talk about before we get your picks overall on a Western Conference, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think with them, their future is better than their present, although, my gosh, they are maximizing its present at this point in time, or at least until the coronavirus happens. They were maximizing every little ounce of what they could get, but their future looks even brighter.
Yeah, they are the surprise team of the league. If I were to make a bet and say that the Thunder would have the same record as the Rockets, everybody would say, well, the Rockets must have had a terrible season. Someone must have been injured and missed a significant amount of time. But no, just the Thunder have just outplayed teams, and they're just really just killing teams with this small 3-guard lineup. I think Chris Paul came into the season with a little extra motivation. A lot of us didn't think that he would be there the whole season. And I honestly feel like if he wasn't making $1 gazillion, he wouldn't be there. But he's bought in, and he's leading this team. Schroeder's playing well, and Gilgeous-Alexander is, he might be the most improved player in the league.
Plus, they have 500 draft picks to look forward to that you and I will probably have to put mock drafts out on over the next 10 years or so. So that'll be something to look at. And that's why I'm saying their future looks really, really bright. I mean, they could really, if they've done well, and obviously they've done well in the draft over the years. I mean, you imagine, you look at all the players that they drafted, especially in that time frame, 4, 5, 6 year time frame that they drafted all those quality players to their team. And yes, they're the team that actually had on the same floor 3 eventual NBA MVPs. I mean, if Sam Presti keeps on having that type of batting average, to use the baseball vernacular, I mean, the future does really look bright as far as them becoming an NBA powerhouse.
And they still have some assets that they could trade if they decide to move Steven Adams. I'm sure they can get more young players or another asset, even though Steven Adams is actually pretty young. I mean, I forgot that he was like 18 when he entered the NBA. So he might not even really be in his prime yet. If he is, he's in the early stages of his prime. They can, if they decide to move Chris Paul, and I think New York Knicks, again, would be someone that would be interested in CP3 just because of his leadership and his ties to CAA, then they can probably get some of the Knicks draft picks that they got from Dallas. So, yeah, the Thunder's future is bright, but I wonder if they're going to decide to try to win now, which, I mean, nobody's going to see them as a championship contender, but I wonder what they do with Gallinari this offseason, if they decide to bring him back or if they decide to let him walk in free agency or do a sign and trade, which I keep forgetting is back. It was gone for a few years.
That is back, and we've seen, and I have a feeling the sign and trade scenario is going to be brought up quite a bit over the next few months, especially because of the way the salary cap is going to be structured in the next 2 to 3 years. So I think it's going to become more valuable than ever, and you're going to see teams willing to comply with other teams on sign and trade, and you're going to see a lot more of that happen in the coming, I'd say, at least 2 to 3 years because of what's happened because of all the stuff that's gone down this year.
I agree. And one thing I didn't realize that because of everything that's happened, they could actually remove the CBA. They have that option. Yeah. And it doesn't sound like they will, but who knows? I mean, things could change because I'm curious to see how the revenue for next season is going to be split.
It's going to be interesting. I'm curious as well. We'll be back with more of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. Needing an edge for your fantasy football team? Listen to the guys at Inside Sports Fantasy Football for insight that will help you reach your league championship. That's Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Check it out today on your favorite podcast outlet. But before we head on to your final predictions, I mean, obviously it starts and could stop and could end as far as the Western Conference in LA, or I should say in Orlando. But one of the LA teams. I mean, the Lakers, obviously, they're my pick. I'm going to stay with them as far as concerned. I think in an environment like this, especially the fact that the Lakers are the best road team in the NBA, I think that suits them. I think people are forgetting and being down upon that. I know the Clippers are what I hear everybody out there on radio, the Clippers in the Bucks, Clippers in the Bucks, Clippers in the Bucks. I understand the Clippers have a loaded team, but I just think right now, when it concerns this type of format, I think that it might suit the Lakers a little bit better. But again, you might disagree on that because you have all those quality players on the Clippers roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think I may sound like a conspiracy theorist here, but if the Clippers and the Lakers meet in the Western Conference Finals and it's a close game, I could see the call shifting more towards the Lakers because the NBA is going to want ratings. A Giannis and LeBron Finals would be, in my opinion, that would be what the NBA would love. I mean, on top of a Lakers-Clippers Western Conference Finals.
I think the best scenario would have been what you had originally said, or what we originally were hoping for, a 1-16 matchup with the battle for LA. I think that would have been the ultimate ratings get. But you're right, Giannis versus LeBron matchup probably would be right there, right, not too far behind.
Yeah, and the Lakers Clippers, even though that's a matchup that I feel like all of LA wants to see. I feel like it loses some of its sting by it not being in LA, which would have benefited the Lakers because they would have had 7 home games just with a different floor. As far as predictions, it is a Lakers podcast, and it's.
But I want you to be honest, man. Don't feel like you're shaded just because it's it's Lakers Fast Break. I've had people on this show before go ahead and predict other teams. I'm still predicting the Lakers, but if you don't feel that same way, don't feel like you have to.
Yeah, I think in a 7-game series on a neutral site, I'm going to slightly lean towards the Clippers. I think the Lakers with I know LeBron and Rondo, when they're on the court together, it doesn't seem like they have the best chemistry, and that's due to Rondo's lack of shooting. I feel like the lack of a playmaker may end up hurting the Lakers a little bit in a deep series, and I just feel that the Clippers are just deep, but it all depends on Waiters. Like, we don't know what with Waiters, how he's going to blend in, how he's going to, come in, if he's going to help the team, and I don't even think they can really start practicing now. So there's not going to be a lot of time for him to even come in and build a lot of chemistry with the team. The same with the Morris twin that's there. But I think that, I think that in a 7-game series, if I had to make a bet on which team that I think would win, I would think the Clippers.
See, like I said, I just want you to be honest, man. Don't feel like you're hating. You're just showing your opinion right there. It's what it's all about. Believe me, people have come on the show and already said a lot about the Lakers. In fact, the Lakers in the beginning of the season, there was a lot of people that were voting against them right on the show. So I understand that. Like I said, for me, I just think it's when it comes down to it in a 7-game series, I think the duo of LeBron and AD will be more effective than Kawhi and Paul George. I really think that's going to be the case. But, it's because I think it will ultimately come down to 2 versus 2. I think the side players, the supporting players are going to have to go ahead and produce. Danny Green is going to have to show up. I think Danny Green, the playoff Danny Green, forget about playoff Rondo. I think playoff Danny Green has to show up because he hasn't shown up all season really. They haven't really needed him, mind you. But if he shows up at all and plays like he did last season in the finals, I think that's a really key for the Lakers happening.
Well, I think LeBron and Kawhi could possibly even each other out. I think that Davis would outplay Paul George. But I think after that, Lou Williams is probably going to be better than the Lakers' third best player. And then also, I think that the Lakers need to play Davis at the 5, Kuzma at the 4, Bron, Danny Green, and probably Caldwell Pope. And one of the Lakers' biggest advantage has been just how dominant they were on the boards and being able to just play big. And I think their rotation is going to be a lot shorter in the playoffs. And one of the bigs is going to be the odd man out.
If that's
I don't know
the
if
case,
it's Dwight or JaVale.
Well, JaVale, throughout his career, you even saw it in Golden State where he gets that, 15 minutes a game, and that's it. And that could easily happen again at this point in time, like you said, within the playoff format. But we'll see how it breaks down. Once again, it's Rafael Barlowe from the NBA Draft Junkies. But before we head on out, my friend, I put out this little mock draft thingy here the other day. And
I liked it.
You liked it. I appreciate it, my friend. I know Michael had some kind words as well, although he had some of the little questions that you did in regards to Tyrese Maxey and a couple others. So I'm here for you, my friend. I want to talk about some of the variances in our mock drafts before we head on out. So the floor is yours on what issues, either up or down, or differences. I would say issues, or I don't want to say bad or good or whatnot, but some of the difference that we have an opinion on currently on some of the draft picks that are out there.
Well, I see we both had Wiseman going number 1 to the Warriors, and
To me, it was a lot closer than I think you had him, because I told you up until about 2-3 days left, I was centered on LaMelo, but looking at the bigger picture and seeing, I'm going to gamble. I just wanted to see more of Wiseman,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't, and I think that's what held me back. But ultimately, I think there's too much talent there to give up.
Yeah, and if I'm the general manager of Golden State Warriors, I'm trading the pick.
Oh, yeah,
I
would
trade
too.
it. Yeah, I'm going to trade down and probably see if I can get into the 5 or 6 range and get another player.
The
and
Knicks.
Just take advantage. Yeah. I mean, with the Knicks, I don't know which which Knick the Warriors would be interested in, but
I would take Robinson, another player, and the first round draft pick.
I don't know if they'll give up. I mean, because they got Robinson for a little bit of nothing. But, I mean, maybe even like Portis. I mean, Portis, I think, could end up playing 5 and go to State.
I would do Robinson. I would not.
Yeah, he's too young. I can't see them giving him up.
Oh, don't say that. It's the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Knicks, but it's Leon Rose. I'm going to give the front office, the new front office, the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
But yeah, we both had Wiseman, number 1. And number 2, you had Edwards to Cleveland. And I had Killian Hayes. I think you actually have paired D'Angelo Russell and LaMelo Ball. I thought that was interesting. So I would like to hear. Well, I know you explained it on your page, but I'd like to hear your reasons for that.
I think D'Angelo Russell's future is as a shooting guard or as a combo guard, where he plays less of the point guard position and more of the off ball. And I think a lot of the reason why he has done the way he has, he's so uneven in his performance, is because a lot has a usage. It's just he's having the ball all the time, and I'm not sure that's the best thing for him. I think if he plays more off the ball, when I've seen him on those rare opportunities, he's actually not done too badly. And I think if LaMelo lands there with Minnesota at number 3, I think I had it, I really think that it would probably be a great thing for D'Angelo's development as a player to expand, because it takes a lot of the pressure off him to have to go ahead and do everything as far as from the backcourt. And I think that would probably be a better fit than most people would realize.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I guess the biggest, I had 3.
Plus, you have a big backcourt. A big backcourt.
Yeah, you definitely would have size. And if Melo buys in on the defensive end, I think it makes sense. But if he doesn't care anything about defense, I don't think he moves the needle much. As far as, I mean, you'd have, I think you already have 2 guys that really don't care too much about defense. And so, and then if they really don't care too much about defense, then how can they push Melo to be a good defender?
That's true. That's the thing. That's the key, because then you have also Karl Anthony Towns and all the stuff that's going on with there as far as his defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's the pushback I got on it. So I hear you on that one.
So my first major question mark is Okongwu to Atlanta, even though they have Capella and John Collins. What makes you decide that was the best fit?
They're moving off of Collins.
And you think Okongwu can play the 4?
Yep. I really think he's a good 4 for them. I think if you have, I mean, again, it comes back to defense, because we talked about Minnesota now being like a defensive sieve if they have that scenario possibility. Or in fact, right now they're really bad defensively. Atlanta is that bad defensively, and you and I have seen they are bad. I mean, Trae Young, God bless his soul, on offense, just so dynamic and does so many great things on offense. He might just want to stay on the offensive side. When the other team checks the ball in and passes the ball in and just goes, he might just want to stay on that side of the half court on the on the other side, just wait for them to finish the pass. Because it really gets bad at points when you see them, Atlanta. And I really think in order to make up for that defensive inefficiency in his game, you need to have not only 1 but 2 defenders. And I really think it would take athletic defenders that are focused on that to do so and to alternate and swap out and have at least, and it's just also not only the fact that you start the game with both of them, it's just the fact that you have 48 minutes of them, meaning one goes out, another one's still there, one goes out, another one's still there, of two similar types of pick and roll big men that can really defend. And that's the one thing that I'm looking for is Atlanta needs, if you're going to have Trae Young out there, you need more than what a normal team would on the defensive end to make up for it.
I'd agree 100%. I just I see you're going back to the traditional double big lineup. So which tells me that you're buying Okongwu's potential as a floor spacer. Yeah,
I am. I see a good stroke for him. But even he only has to do a little bit of that. And they have, if they find spacers at the 2 and the 3 consistently, and maybe a trade with Collins can do that, because I really don't think Collins is going to end up being the answer there. I really think he needs to be moved because, again, it comes down to defense, and he's not providing enough of it there for them. I think they are going to try and trade for some assets, and if you can find spacing in the 2 and the 3, you can actually field a decent team that's focused on defense enough, and you have the spacing there. And all you need to do when it comes to Okongwu is just have enough in the three-point area to just get teams distracted so you can go ahead and keep the floor spaced.
All valid. Next, so at 5 you had Killian Hayes to Detroit. I think they're going to fill their need at either the 1 or the 5. Halliburton to the Knicks. That's better than Knicks fans will like that better than my choice because I didn't have them taking the point guard. Now, Obi Toppin at Chicago. Do you think Markkanen is gone?
I think so. It's one of those cases where has potential, but he's injured too often. And how much longer can a team wait? So they're going to get either off Zach LaVine or they're going to get off Markkanen. I have a feeling.
And I feel like Wendell Carter has been injured just as much as Markkanen.
I think there's
close to it.
Close to it. I think it's close to it. I think they might give Wendell Carter a little bit more of a chance. But I also think teams will be more attracted to Markkanen because of his outside shooting.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I would keep Markkanen if I'm Chicago. I really would keep him. I know like Wendell Carter has played. In his 2 seasons, he's played 87 games combined, and so I feel like he's kind of getting a pass in the injury reputation. And I know Markkanen had the oblique muscle or something like that really affected his shooting. But a 7-footer that can shoot like that, I'm not giving him up.
All right. Well, there you go. I mean, like I said, I think he's going to be the more valuable of an asset to trade. I think he's going to get the more calls, let's put it that way, than Wendell Carter Jr.
And that's what I was wondering, like, if you trade him and then you get assets, like, what do you get for him?
I mean, it's going to be either like a first-rounder. I don't know if you can get a first-rounder and a player. You're right. That's still a little bit harder. I still think Zach LaVine is gone. I think they're going to have to shake up the Chicago Bulls. I think it starts with him first, but then I think that Markkanen is going to get the most calls.
I can see that. Charlotte, you had Patrick Williams at number 8. That's the biggest riser. I've seen a lot of draft boards, but I haven't seen him that high. And I know we talked about it briefly on the last episode. And I like the gutsy call. Like you went totally against the norm. And so Patrick Williams at number 8. And that's his hometown, so I'm sure he would love that.
Well, I just see potential there, and he may not. That's as high as he may go for me. He may in subsequent drafts fall a little bit, but he's not going to fall for me that much, if that's the case, because I just see a lot of potential there. I see him nudging out Devin Vassell by a little bit. I know a lot of people are high on Devin Vassell, and I don't have Devin Vassell that far. He's still a lottery choice, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that of the two, I think because he has a little bit more size, but he has what I've seen is a really good stroke. I really, really like his form. So I think it's going to translate into the league. As I talked to both you and also as well Michael Weisenberg, to me it's about the form, it's about the whole dynamics, the mechanics, what I see. It's like, okay, after the ball leaves, let me see what he does. Let me see his form. Let me see his follow through. Let me see where his feet are at. Let me see where everything is before I go ahead and say, I think that's going to translate in the next level. Not just that he's hitting this percentage of free throw shooting. And because I know that a lot of people, that was what we've talked about, that if he's hitting a good free throw percentage, that is a decent indicator that he might become, or this player might become, a good shooter in the league, even if he's not shooting well now. I also look at the form. I also look at, is there a hitch? Is there not a hitch? Where's the ball leaving? Does he have a clear vision of the basket when he's shooting it, and things of that nature? To me, I look at the form just as much as I do the percentages.
So you would say Ben Wallace would be a good shooter because his form looked good. I mean, I know he didn't have touch, but when he shot, it looked like his elbow was in. He had arc, and he just could not make a free throw to save his life. So, just giving you a hard time with that one.
Yeah, you're giving me a hard time on that. But then again, that time you might have to look at the stats. But just to me, it's like I said, it's an evaluation and I appreciate all the things that you've done for me and all the things you sent me, because it's given me a new perspective on the stuff that you sent over, and I look at that and I see again is just, it's not just what's on paper. It's that you've said before. It's the eye test too.
Yep. Yeah, it's and you have to trust your judgment, and it's kind of like you got to be. A friend of mine told me yesterday, we were talking about Jamias Ramsey, and I was saying like, well, the numbers look good. He shot 42% from three. He attempted a significant amount of shots. He did not come into the season with a reputation as being a knockdown shooter, but his free throw percentage is bad. And my friend who's an agent said, well, you have to choose either or. You can't be on the fence. Either you're buying that he's a good shooter, or you're saying that this was just a one thing and long term he's not the shooter that his numbers are. And so it kind of made me think. But you have to, just go by your judgment. Trust your judgment.
Well, I'll tell you what, my friend, it's just a lot to think about, but is there any others that you want to go and hit me up on? I mean, I know Tyrese Maxey was somebody that you were kind of like...
And Cole Anthony, the 2-point guards that were projected lottery, and probably in the late lottery on most draft boards. And the thing I like about your draft is you went by like what you see. And I had mentioned it in the last podcast, is that it doesn't look like your picks are influenced by reputation coming in. They're not influenced by EYBL numbers. And I feel like you judge Cole Anthony and Tyrese Maxey based off of the seasons that they had.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I have to go off is how are they playing right now heading into the league? So that's – and then I know that's something I talked about with Michael, because when they did that group thing on RookieWire.com back in August, Cole Anthony was number one. And Cole Anthony, to me, back when he was in high school, coming out of high school, looked like a number one, or at least a very high candidate. And it just hasn't lived up to it. And, yes, he was injured, but yes, his team was bad. But the optics tell me that there's still a lot to work on in his game, and I don't think it's going to be fixed entirely. I said as a second playmaker and a guy who can get you buckets, I think that could possibly work. I'm not sure he's going to be the efficient, great playmaking guard that you want out of your point guard, but as a first option. So I don't see his career panning out in that fashion, but in the right team, in the right scenario, he could flourish as long as the emphasis and the onus is not squarely upon him to have to do everything.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I feel like coming into the year, we knew the areas that we wanted to see him address, and we knew the question marks. It seems like I shouldn't say it seems, he just did not answer those question marks.
Yeah.
And so I could see why he falls. I think he's a guy that I don't think he falls as far as where you have him, because I think some teams are still going to go based off of his reputation. And then, I think the fact that he didn't have a lot of help at North Carolina this year, because I had mentioned before that I was low on him, and then when I watched this film again, I realized some of it was not his fault. As far as like him only shooting 39% at the rim, is because he was in a congested, super crowded lane because North Carolina didn't have any shooting. So I think some teams may consider that in drafting him and figure that he'll be a much better finisher with NBA spacing. Then as far as Tyrese Maxey, he's a guy that he's the opposite of Jamias Ramsey. He came into college basketball with the reputation as a shooter. He only shot 29% from three, but his free throw percentage was like 83 or 84. And he's a tough guy to project because, and I personally feel that if he's not a point guard, then he's not going to have like a really successful NBA career or maximize his potential. I think he has to play point guard.
See, I disagree with you on that. I don't think he is going to be a great – I mean, you could put him in spots there, but I don't think he can be relied upon that. I think he's going to be a defensive specialist and someone, like you said, it all depends to me on the outside shot. I'm not entirely convinced either that shot is going to be there.
And see, and that's why he's tough because he has touch. Like if you watch his finishes around the rim, you know, these high off the glass, soft touch floaters, he's a very good free throw shooter. It makes you think like, okay, well, the shooting can be fixed. I think he has a low release and he's going to have to be able to shoot it far. But I don't think that if he's a 2 at 6'2", and I mean, I really think that he's going to measure out at like 6'1" and 3/4. I don't see him as being 6'3". He's small for a 2, so I think he's going to have to play the point guard position. And if he can't develop those skills, then it's going to be tough for him to live up to the potential. Or, I mean, based off of where you have him going in the draft, if he doesn't, then he'll be fine. But if he's a lottery pick and doesn't really develop those point guard skills, then a GM is going to lose their job.
You see, when I'm trying to understand, I see, and I'm thinking, because I have a number 20 right now. Mm-hmm. I think you're seeing him being picked a little bit higher than that.
Yeah, I had him in New Orleans, I believe. So I had him at the end of the lottery. And even then, just looking at that, the pick where I had him at, it just depends on what New Orleans does with JJ or how they feel about Frank Jackson. They also got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, so they may not even look at a guard. So I could actually see him really sliding down because I think 1 or 2, maybe even 3 of these point guards that we had very high coming into the season, I feel like maybe 2 of them may slide down to the 20s.
There you go. Those are some great thoughts right there. And over the course of time, we're still going to go back and forth on each other's mock picks. Again, if you get a chance, please check out NBA Draft Junkies today for Rafael's not 1 but 2 videos on his mock draft because it's so good it needs 2 videos or 2 podcasts that are now available at NBA Draft Junkies, available wherever you can get your podcasts. You can also check out his great site, NBADraftJunkies.com, or you can check out my mock draft currently on PopCultureCosmos.com and also the Lakers Fast Break channel. Well, my friend, I appreciate you being a little bit gentle on me as far as my mock draft is concerned. I'm sure we're going to go over it in detail in future episodes as well. I mean, over the coming months, as you know, there's always tweaks and risers and fallers in the draft, even in a time like this where you don't exactly have a combine, possibly no combine or workouts to work off of, or the scuttlebutt that you hear on the NBA. So it's going to be interesting to see how that happens over the course of time, especially when the draft is not until October. But there's still plenty of time for us to go ahead and speculate on where these kids will go. But I want to hear your thoughts before we end on out on what you're working on at NBA Draft Junkies.
Same old, same old. You know, I have so much time between now and the draft. I think at this point, normally we would know the lottery and we would, you know, just know what teams are picking. Right now, we're still in the same position as if it's April. So I, like I said before, I'm just adding different content to the site, just adding more stuff to the player profiles and doing videos. I think the next video that I'll do is Sadiq Bey. He's the guy that
He's been talked about in the past couple of days.
Yeah, I could see him. I could see him anywhere from late lottery to. I don't see him going past Dallas, and just a modern day big wing that can handle the ball and shoot and defend that teams are looking for. So that'll probably be the next video that I'll put out, and then I'm working on it now, and I think that I'll do a team needs videos based off of the 2020 draft. So I think I'll start off with the Atlantic division, and I try to play my role as the general manager of each team and try to fill their team need with based off of where they're picking on the draft.
Fair enough, my friend. And once again, you can check out everything on that at NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube. Please subscribe, like his videos. It really helps out and gets him into that stratosphere of where he deserves to be right there when you're typing in any prospect in NBA Draft, because his work is outstanding, and I hope you get a chance to check it out at NBA Draft Junkies. Well, my friend, it's been great talking to you once again. And if you have any questions out there, always you can check us out on Twitter at NBA Draft Junkies or at Barlowe500 for Rafael. And for us, it's at Lakers Fast Break. You can always send us a message on a particular prospect or your thoughts on the rest of the season. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We're always active on social media, but my friend, it's going to be hopefully, very soon that we're going to be seeing these NBA teams start to shape up and, get towards that start of the regular season, whatever's left of it. Any last thoughts on the way out?
I'm just looking forward to the season starting. I know we still have a little ways to go. And just, how this whole situation is handled as far as like the bubble and everything that's going to come along with, these guys trapped is probably not the best word to use, but everyone being in the same environment and like the crowd, or is it going to look like an AAU game, or are the Lakers players going to be in the crowd at the Clippers? I don't know. I'm just really curious and looking forward to see how this all plays out from a fan aspect of just being able to watch basketball again, but just seeing how different and unique the situation is going to be.
Well, I'll tell you, my friend, I said it to Laker Tom, but I'll say it to you now. I would pay extra money to hear the smack talk, not only from on the court, but also from the crowd, quote unquote, of other NBA players, and to hear that smack talk. I would pay extra on the NBA League Pass just for that channel.
You know what? I thought about that too, but then I also thought about, well, everybody is in close proximity to each other. So you got to hope the smack talk stays on the court because, the guy who you may have been talking trash to or you gave the hard flagrant foul because he said something to you, he might be staying down the hall from you. So I'm curious. That's a lot of things I'm curious about, but I'm very interested to see how much of an impact that has on everything that's going on.
Well, I would also ask that channel be able to, at night, to have the security cam footage of the hallways of the Coronado Springs.
Yeah. I think they should mic the players up, and it should be like The Last Dance, where you had one channel that had the unedited version, even though it was still pretty much edited. But I would love to, maybe even if it is like pay-per-view, where you can pay, I don't know, whatever amount just to hear the totally unedited, mic'd up. I think that would be cool.
That would make up for a lot of lost dollars, and I know a lot of fans would appreciate that.
Yeah.
The national
Draymond
yes.
and Patrick Beverly mic'd up.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't want to pay to hear Kawhi mic'd up at all. So.
Russell Westbrook, however.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook will be a different story.
Yeah.
James Harden too.
He doesn't seem like he says much, but then his beard covers his mouth that you can't even see if he's talking or not.
I think he says a lot more than you might think. The National Bubble Association, my friend. Can't wait to see it.
Sounds good.
Well, again, my friend, it's just great having you on again. Check out Rafael Barlowe today at NBA Draft Junkies. Always a pleasure to have you on right here, Rafael, at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.